Hello and welcome to Chicken Chats. We're so excited you're here. I'm Brittany Sweeney. I'm with the Livestock Conservancy. I also have one of my geese here with me today. She might be talking to you. Just letting you know ahead of time. She's one of my Sebastipols. I'm trying to tame her down so that she can go out on the road with me sometime. We also have Jeanette Behringer, our wonderful poultry expert extraordinaire, and the amazing Cynthia Capers. Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. Jeanette, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Cynthia, do you want to say hello to everyone and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior program manager at the Livestock Conservancy, and I run all different kind of programs here. Kind of the go-to for chickens and all things poultry. And I kind of practice what I preach at home, and I breed Crevecoeur chickens currently. I profess to be the world's biggest chicken snob. I just love them, and I live and breathe the APA standard, and really try to help folks to stay on the right track with poultry breeding, and just love it. And you'll see me creeping around chicken shows and all things poultry. But I'm thrilled to have Cynthia over here. Your reputation precedes you, and I'm really looking forward to having a great conversation.
Well, hello, everybody. I am Cynthia, and I am here at Heniscity Farm, and this is a making of a farm of a woman who is totally not was thinking she'd be a farmer, who's a registered farmer nurse, who is a farmer, and I am in love with the fact that I'm involved with the birds. I love my birds, and the fact that I'm involved with Conservancy because I believe in ensuring that we have a stable food source. And I just don't think many people realize that we've got an issue with our edible meats and foods. So if it's not a plant-based, is what I mean. So I'm excited. I'm just excited to be here and talk about whatever we were going to talk about with this gorgeous world of our birds.
Yeah, well, I thought this chat would be particularly interesting for folks because there are a lot of folks that, live in a more urban setting but still want to have chickens, and you've kind of got the best of both worlds, being, kind of on the outskirts of Nashville, and I guess my first question is, what made you leave Chicago and decide to get into farming?
Well, I left Chicago because I was a single parent mom and I'm raising two boys, and didn't want to be in a place where I had to worry about the organized gangs. And having male children, they tend to, be more adaptable to, for some reason, the fraternity of a gang, and I wanted to be out of that loop. And so I came to Tennessee based on a whole nother set of things. I wouldn't have come to Tennessee, but I did. Because I was recruited here because they were short of nurses. And so I just decided to come here. Then when I got into the poultry was a whole nother thing because I had been, no one knew that I really loved poultry, because in the city, you can't talk about that. They think you're crazy and weird. And you just can't even discuss those kinds of things. And so I started researching birds about 20 years ago, different breeds of chickens or whatever. And then I started off about almost 20 years ago with Australorps. That was the birds of choice. I figured they said that they had a great temperament. They were dual purpose, which of course I didn't know what that meant then. And they were just a great bird to start with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a breed that we often recommend for beginners because they are easy keepers and lay tons of eggs. And fun fact, the Australorp is the world's record egg layer, where one hen was recorded as laying 364 eggs in a 365-day period.
What?
True story.
It's like that Novagen kind of bird that they've got now.
Yeah. As far as I know, the Australorp holds the world's record. But
Wow.
that was one particular hen. They don't all do that by
No,
any means.
no, but there are some that do lay. You know, I had one that laid. She would lay 2 in a day, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how did your boys transition to farm life? Was it the easy for them?
Because when I first moved here, I moved into a regular neighborhood. I moved out here to this acreage property about 20 years ago, and my boys are, you know, they've been gone for quite some time. I would say that they did not transition to it. They thought their mom was on some kind of wrong with mom. Uh,
Yeah.
because the boys wanted to be more in a city and have close with their friends, and this is isolated. You know, it wasn't quite the fun thing for them. You know, when they're in high school and those kinds of times. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I can honestly say, but you know, they couldn't do anything about it because I was in charge.
So, you know, I love your signature when you are doing emails, and you know you have your name and then Heniscity Farm, NPIP certified, APPPA member, Livestock Conservancy champion, heritage breeder, licensed egg candler, licensed fiber hemp grower. That's a lot.
It's a
You want
lot.
it is. So you want to tell us a bit about your actual business with the birds and where you've taken it over the past couple of decades.
Well, I started off with just was those Australorps, and of course that was only had 6 birds, and then I went from 6 to 24, and 24 to 50, and then 75, and then I started going into different kinds of breeds, and I think I got a batch of exotics one time, and then I had the Polishes, and I was like, holy crap, look at them, this is something else, um, and so I would say that for the first all of see maybe 5 years ago, I feel like I became officially a farmer. For the first 15 or so, I felt like I was more of a hobbyist because I was still doing nursing. And then I was also traveling for pharmaceutical companies. I was working in clinical research, doing clinical trials. And so I had my birds here at home, but I wasn't, doing a lot with them as far as the big farming thing. I was selling eggs, or giving away eggs, really, because I was just doing that. I had so many. You're like, oh my goodness, these birds do this? I don't think I was ready for that. And then, eating egg and just growing, but not realizing I was growing um, until I started thinking about I remember looking up the Polishes and some other and finding out there was a issue with conservation with the breeds. And I said, really? No. Then I started targeting more of my time toward what was important for conserving birds, the breeds
Mhm.
that were in jeopardy. And I literally started when instead of me just buying a bird or buying birds, I started looking at the conservation list,
Mhm.
what's out there, what's the problems, what's the standard of perfection, which I didn't know what that was. And because all of that was like outside of that world, and
Mhm.
that I started doing more of the conservation, I would say the last 5 years, where I really start targeting my time and my expertise of the birds themselves.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I was curious, you're a licensed egg handler. What do you do with that license specifically for your business? How does that help your business?
Well, when you sell eggs, people just sell fresh eggs and everyone wants to sell fresh eggs or people want fresh eggs. And that's fine. But then you've got the food safety because once you're into the food market, then you're in the food safety. And I certainly did not want to hurt somebody and although I eat my eggs straight from as I call it, the woo, okay, I'll get them
Mhm.
and I'll eat them. I knew that going to the public would be a issue, right? So I wanted to make sure they were safe. So I found out that there's actually laws that regulate eggs, the selling of eggs, the packaging of eggs, the fact that when you buy a carton of eggs, it has extra large, large. It has graded on it. The grade A's, double A, whatever. What is that? Why do you have to have these markings on the cartons? Because you've been buying them for years. And that's when I learned, because there's a standard by the federal government. And I said, well, I need to know more about what that is. So I started candling. I was always candling, but then I started saying, you know what? I need to candle and understand really what it means, the embryonic stages and all of that, and what it means in food safety. So by getting your license as a candler, then you're following a higher standard than someone that is just selling eggs from their farm or from their flock. And you're maintaining a food safety, which is very important to me. So I don't have to, I can actually go to another farm and I can inspect their eggs if I had to. I don't, but I could. So I'm just more or less upping the ante here so that I know my eggs are safe.
Mm-hmm. And what are you checking for when you candle? Just embryonic development?
Embryonic development. Hopefully there isn't any. An air sac, air cell, quality of the yolk in the white. Is there any germ or bacteria inside the egg? You can see that. Well, they train you on that. What you should be looking for when you hit that light, outside of looking for a blood spot, which you're looking for that, that could be because of, it could be an embryo, doesn't necessarily mean. But you can also see if there's some kind of parasites or bacteria. You can see that. There's other pieces in that egg that you could be looking for.
Wow. And how, if somebody wants to get certified like that, where do they go to have that certification?
Well, there's not that many places, unfortunately, in the U.S. Tennessee did not have that. I was fussing about them, where can I get this done? And they were like, well, we don't do that. I'm like, okay. Georgia, the state of Georgia is. That's okay. Is that your puppy?
It is. We just had a fire truck go by, so they're like, what's going
on? The state of Georgia has candling classes where you can learn and get that. Georgia is the #1 poultry producer, I believe. So they have things that are more directed toward poultry.
Okay. So of the so your business has evolved to, your primary business is eggs, eating eggs.
Yes.
Do you supplement that with breeding stock and other means of income from the birds beyond eggs?
Well, I sell fresh eggs. I also sell live birds, chicks and laying hens, and males if they want to do that to themselves. If they want to, if they just want to, for various reasons. Last year I did meat birds. I did batches of meat birds. I will be doing batches of meat birds again. I would say the meat birds to me are more stable economically if you're going to do them. But of course, there are different. This is a whole different. I would not enter into the meat bird for anyway. Whoever wants to do those, they just have to be conscientious to know different type of situation than regular laying hens or dual purpose birds. But I'm supplementing. I'll be supplementing this year with doing some more batches of meat birds because it went very well, and people are very happy with them. I'm considering looking at the conservation side of birds, if there's some that are meat, balancing that out and maybe doing some conservation ones for meat. But I haven't really got into what would I do for that, because I don't think about my Polishes for that. Maybe my Australorps. I would just have to look at it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah. There are some breeds that are okay as dual purpose, and Australorps kind
Yeah,
of fall within that. Especially the males get big enough that they make
they do.
decent table birds. The Polish though has always been strictly an egg layer with not much of a meat
Yeah.
carcass. Although you can eat them, they're perfectly edible.
I do have Australorp. I have a Australorps that I've got set aside for standard of perfection that I pulled aside that I checked for, that they're going to be my breeding stock. And
Hmm.
I have had Sam Faverolles here,
Hmm.
which is another we know is a conservation, and they're
Yeah.
just not as hardy. I had one left, and she died last week, but she was around for like 3, 4 years.
Yeah, I think they need really well drained soil and not so much humidity.
Yes,
Um, but for folks that are getting into the rare breeds, the optimal thing is if you can find a breeder that's been raising them in
yeah,
your region for a while. Is that when I first got Buckeyes, it took about 3 generations before we finally were producing birds that could really deal with the heat and not have to have a fan on them. And but it takes generations. And I'm sorry, my mini poodle is being very talkative today. But it takes generations to be able to get them used to that, and you can make progress over the years. And same thing with my Crevcours. We're now in what, the ninth generation, and they deal with the heat just fine.
yeah,
They've always been called a delicate bird, but honestly, I've got to roll over them with my car to kill them. They're very hardy for me. But with other people, they get them and they drop dead right away. And I think I'm suspecting that, maybe they've got sensitivity to Merrick's or something like that. Because for some people, they do really, really well. And no problems whatsoever, great fertility. And then other people, they'll come in perfectly healthy birds, and as soon as they're put into the general population after quarantine, they all die. So I'm thinking maybe they're just sensitive to Merrick's or something
yeah,
like that. But
yes.
um, they, you just got to be kind of conscientious about that. And so with all the breeds that you've been working with, is there one in particular that you've really had good fun with and have enjoyed above the others?
That's a conservation bird or just in general?
Just in general,
Huh?
although it would be nice for conservation bird.
Let's see. I think if I was going to say a bird that I've enjoyed that's been unusual that I didn't think that I would, it would be maybe the Swedish duck, which
Mhm.
I really wasn't into the duck world, but I wanted to be. And I had a fellow farmer who was sick and tired of her ducks. And she said, "I'm getting rid of my duck." I said, "Well, just bring them over here." Of course, I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was saying when I said that. And so I took them, and they were call ducks. Beautiful, beautiful little bitty, bantam. They're gorgeous little things.
Mhm.
And
Very talkative.
oh,
They
and
always got something to say.
Essie, I named one Esmeralda, and I don't normally name my birds, but I named her Esmeralda because she just seemed like she was an Esmeralda, and she would just be that call. So I loved it. I loved them, and I really got to enjoy them. And I think it was great that I started off with small and the calls, and then now I have Pekings and white layers, and I have the Swedish. And again, I chose the Swedish because of the conservation.
Mhm.
I went right on that page of ours over there on that website, and I said, "What's on that list there that I can be doing something?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I only shop from that list first.
Well, we appreciate that. That's what it's there for.
What I do,
And
I go right there. I'm like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. No, 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 Cynthia, because I already know that I'm a bird person, so I'll go all the way. I'll have birds here all the time. So I have to kind of, direct and discipline myself to
mhm.
get
Yeah.
down.
Now,
They've been wonderful. So I would say that would be the birds that I would like to do more with.
mhm.
Mhm.
And you have a lot of public visitors. How do you incorporate that into your business?
Well, right now, well, that's something I was just talking to the Tennessee State University about this a couple days ago, because we're thinking about having some classes, and this be one of the sites where we can do some on-site, learning. And I'm concerned, of course, about the avian flu. So we can't not have people, running around here right now. I've had the children, families come and learn about birds and learn about conservation, and have them in with the pens and have them, interact with the birds. I've also taken the Swedish duck and some of the other birds with me to urban gardens, urban areas, and let them interact with them, and just, feel what that is. So I would say on the business side, I like to have more events here where I have more learning going on. Uh, uh, I would just love to have more of that. Just I haven't had a lot of it because you're working so much with everything else that you can't. I'm the one woman show here, so there's only so much you can do in your course of your, I don't know, a month or whatever. I won't say a day. A day is not even, it's a blink.
Mhm.
So but the goal is, when I have this farm training that we're doing for the poultry, I have conservation as one. I created the curriculum for it, and conservation is one of the huge topics on there, because so many people don't know anything about that particular thing. They're more into the organics, the organic world, and I'm fine with that, except for, well, I don't want to say except for, I just think that the organic world is okay, but it's not going to do you any good to have organics if you don't have any birds.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We got to have the individuality and the diversity in the flocks and in the other animals as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when I was reading an article that mentioned that you went to the New Farmer Academy at Tennessee State University, can you tell us what that program is and how that helped you along in your poultry adventure?
Well, I knew that I didn't know anything about farming per se. I knew that I had a garden, and I had the chickens for a long time, and I felt real good about the chickens. As far as, I felt over the years of self-taught reading, practicing, trying different things, having some of the, they die, they live, the egg being stuck in the, cloak, all these things. I felt like I had a good handle, but I didn't have a handle on farming,
Mhm.
actual farming, because I'm an inner city girl. There's no farming going on here. I'm not a generational farmer, and I haven't been on a farm, and so I took that class to get the basics from farming, everything from soil testing and being on a tractor. What is a tractor? I had taken care of tractors, accidents. People had accidents on tractor in my trauma nurse days,
Mhm.
which made me very afraid of a tractor, honestly.
I
Okay,
never thought about that.
because that's all I ever saw when I did rural nursing, emergency room in rural areas. Most of them are farm accidents.
Mhm.
And in the inner city, it's a different type of trauma. But in the rural areas, it's farm accidents. And I was just like, do I really want to do that? Because these people are doing all this crazy stuff. And, but anyway, but I learned what a tractor was, all the different things it can do, the tiller, the plow, the disc, uh, the USDA programs. Everything. It was great, and that was foundational for me, and it was necessary. And then I could use that part of it. And I remember when we went to the poultry part, when they finally had a speaker for poultry, I remember sitting there going, "Oh Lord, he is boring me to tears." Guy, I should have just stayed home today, because I got this. And that's when I said, "Ooh, you have this."
Yeah.
See, had
That
been,
must have felt good.
that was the only thing, because I had been in there for months and I was like taking notes, and I raised my hand about 1,000 times. And in the end, I became, I think, the spokesperson for the class, which was interesting because I was the most one that was not afraid to ask questions. I asked everything, you know. I didn't even care because I was like, I got to figure out what the hell this is. I don't know what this is going on. But the poultry part was like, no, I got that. And the only thing I didn't have was the record keeping of, you know, how you see your feed ratios, feed to egg ratio, all of that comes with figuring out if you're making a profit, you know, with birds, you know what I'm saying? Those kind
of. And that's a place where most beginning farmers don't understand that they're bleeding money and how to figure out how to stop that. You know, because, you know, the animals can be a real money pit very quickly. And even if you have a lot of money, it gets tired after a while when you're pouring so much money into animals and not getting much of a return.
Right.
And so
that part was the best part of his speech. I remember that part is where I was like, what is going on up there when I saw the spreadsheets? And because he had passed out like different books, like he had a stack of books he brought for references, and he was passing them out around the class. And you know, I was like, oh Lord, he's passing out Gail Damerow. I got that. Oh Lord, he's passing out Joel Salatin. I got that. Oh my God, he's passing out Harvey Osler. What the heck? I got these books already. Actually, because I was just so I knew that's the only And then after that was over, I think I asked them, can I be teaching this somewhere out in the outskirts? Because some of what he's talking about, I think he's, you know, we need, I can do better than that. And now they're like, yeah. So now they're thinking about, you know, of course I'm now presenting at the new Farmers Academy, which is a big turn.
Yay!
So I did. Yeah, so it's great. So
I think you're going to be far more interesting to listen to.
Yes, only because I think that poultry is not. This is my peeve of the peeve. Poultry is not being given the due respect as a gateway to livestock, as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's just my opinion.
I also saw an intriguing quote you once said that eggs are the answer to hunger.
They are the answer to hunger.
And how did you come to that conclusion, and why?
Because, you know, when you think about it, okay, here's this beautiful bird that she's the girls, not that the boys aren't, but the boys are, we know, flamboyant. But she's able to be a meat giver and an egg giver. So she's two pieces of keeping you from starving. So if you get down to it, you could wring her neck and you could have her, you know, on the pit if you want. But then you have this egg. The egg, if she does nothing else, even if you kept her just for that, for her 2 years, or maybe sometimes they even lay till 5 or 6. I had an Americana that laid for a long time. That one egg is a protein-packed meal right there. It's everything in it. Everything is in that yolk and that white, especially the yolk. So if you can eat an egg a day, I know people, they get into the side of the cholesterol. I hear that and I'm like, I don't really want to hear that. I do hear it, but I understand it. But no, that's not all that's driving your cholesterol. Okay. If you think about it as a protein, so it is the cheapest. And well, if you had an egg a day, you're not going to starve. You know, the homeless had an egg. So I mean, I donate eggs because for that very reason, it is the thing. One thing that's the cheapest, still probably food. I don't know how long it's going to stay that, but to me, it's got everything in it. It's the one complete food source.
Well, if you think about it, it's got everything in it to create a life, you know, and if you could find a way to eat the shell, you're perfect.
And I give everything shell to my livestock guardians. When I give him boiled eggs, I crush that whole thing up, shell and all, and give it to him. And of course, you know, I can't do that with the birds because then you have the egg eaters. Egg eating, so you have to be careful with that. But the shells, when I grew up, my grandmother used the egg shells before she cooked eggs, when she was just going to crack an egg for baking, she kept the shells, and we used those for fertilizer on her plants when we were in the city. And I don't think people realize them, even that in itself, right? It's that shell's got all that calcium and all that richness in it too.
Yeah,
So
we put all our shells in the compost as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a great piece. It is no reason to be hungry if you have a chicken and she's laying. She's laying. You're there. So why are we having people are starving? I don't understand that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was so excited last year. I discovered that the local food pantry accepts farm eggs as long as they're washed and in cartons. I
Ah,
can donate all my extra eggs because I have large breeding flocks, and you can only hatch so many birds out, and our office isn't that big, and Brittany's giving me competition because her ducks probably outlay some of my chickens. But rather than composting, now I've got the food pantry I can bring all the extra eggs to, and that's been a lot of fun and gratifying. Just because I'm looking at the price of eggs in the grocery store, and my goodness, they're not getting cheaper. That's for sure.
cheaper. They're becoming almost out of range. They could be still considered out of range, but they're still far cheaper than something else that they couldn't eat. I went to starting to do for a while. I'm doing half dozen. I haven't done it in a while. Half dozen egg donations so I could give to more families. Uh,
Hmm.
to spread it out more, because when I was low on production, for then I still wanted to be able to donate, so I had to go to halves, and in the end the halves were better because they're
Hmm.
usually coming to the pantry to get box foods and canned goods, and then they each get a half, so I was able to get two families instead of one with a 6 dozen egg. So
Well, that's brilliant.
mhm.
We had a micro grant winner out in one of the islands in one of the San Juan Islands in Washington, and she had a little farm stand that sold fresh eggs to the campers that came out there. And it turns out the campers only wanted a half dozen; they didn't need the full dozen. And so part of her micro grant was buying half dozen egg crates with her farm name on it. And I can't wait to see her financial report. She's supposed to be sending us a report back on how that went. But it was a brilliant marketing strategy for the campers because they wanted eggs. They just didn't want a whole dozen.
No,
And
I'm not gonna eat them. I used to give a half a dozen to my B&B. I had a B&B on the property that was I still have the but someone's in there long term. But that's what I would leave for them in there, so they would have fresh eggs from me, a half a dozen fresh eggs, homemade butter, and uh, what else did I leave them? Basically that, unless I got some fresh bread, if I made fresh bread, and that would just be there for them, and then I
mhm.
would, yeah.
That's so
So
nice. Now I want some.
Well, wanted to. I love cooking, but um, I didn't have time to cook, so I thought I'd just leave them that, and they could, make eke out the rest of that on their own.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about our birds is the cooking part and exploring how to cook the different stages of the birds and take advantage of every part of the life cycle because everybody wants the young fryers, but what's become my favorite lately are the roosters because I've just learned how to cook them properly so that every bit is moist and fall off the bone, wonderful meat. You got to learn how to cook it right, and people have forgotten how to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
So we need to talk about that offline. I've got
well, and
some males, and I've cooked them certain ways, but they can be tough if they're over 6 months old. So yeah, that's
oh
a
no, you just have to learn how to cook them.
yeah.
But actually, if you look at our newsletter, I'm working on a series of articles on finishing animals, and the last two issues, I talked about all the different things you can do at the different life stages with chickens. And so with the older birds, we talked about cooking in a Dutch oven for 3.5 hours, and not 2.5. It has to be 3.5 hours at 275.
Exactly.
And the other one, and I'm excited, the week after next, we're going to have a discussion about schmaltz. I've been accused that I like saying that word too much. I do, schmaltz, schmaltz, schmaltz. But my hens are very fatty when they get older, and they produce this beautiful golden fat that you can render down and use as a cooking oil, and put it in recipes, and it's wonderful stuff that people just have forgotten how to use it. And I got this really nice note from one of our former board members who read the article and said he had a 70-year flashback to his grandmother cooking with schmaltz when he was a little boy, and he had forgotten all about it. And he said, "Thank you for writing about that. I completely forgot about it." And he raises chickens too, so now he's dying to try that with some of the old hens and roosters. And
I need to try that. I cook a lot. Actually, I'm funny. We're talking about food recipes, because some of the meat birds, I'm being asked for the recipes on how come because people are buying them, but they don't taste the sample that I give them. They can't get their bird to taste that way. And I said, well, because there's just ways you got to do that bird,
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the education of your customers. And I hear that over and over with people that are successful with marketing their meat animals, is to have instructions to go with.
Yes, I'm going to have. I hadn't been doing it, but I'll have to now.
Yeah, because even my daughter, she's growing up on our chickens, and I gave her a hen, and I told her exactly how to cook it, and she decided to take a shortcut and throw it in the rotisserie. And she's like, "Mom, that bird was really tough." And I said, "Did you follow my instructions?" "Well, no, I put it in a rotisserie." And I'm like, "Well, that's your fault. It's not the bird's fault. It's the cook's fault." So, we've just, if you follow the directions, you really can't go wrong. But everybody wants that, get it done fast recipe.
Yes,
And
they
with the older birds, it's slow and low, and you just have to be patient. And you'll have a very enjoyable product. And I always like to say, when I'm cooking a rooster, they're inside the oven, inside a covered Dutch oven, and I can have that cooking and walk maybe 100 feet away from the house, and I can still smell that bird. It's just wonderful aroma, and just like, mwah, I
really.
love it.
I know. I'm a foodie. It sounds like we need to be putting together a livestock conservancy cook.
Well,
Yes.
I
Possibly.
just, I love my job because I'm kind of working my way through the breeds, and trying different, with the birds, you really have a different product every few months,
Yeah,
from
that
spring
family.
chicken to your fryer to your broiler to your roaster to your old hen, and so forth and so on. And
Yeah, we need to
that,
promote that. I think I need to do more promotion on that because I don't think we think of it that way. Uh,
well, read the article in our newsletter,
I'll do it.
the past two newsletters. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. I'll have to do that.
Well, have there any questions out there for us, Brittany?
Oh, yeah, we got some questions. I bet everybody's hungry. I know my stomach's going right now. All
I
sorts
know,
of
especially
delicious
talking about all this food.
Hi, Joyce. Thanks for joining us today. Joyce says, while the breed is called Polish, I hear that it is actually from the Netherlands and not Poland. Is this true?
Yep, that is
That
true.
is
And they're called Polish because their top knots reminded people of the helmets that the Polish military officers used to wear.
All right, great question. Thanks, Joyce. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for joining us today. We're glad you're here. Marilyn says, we had a hobby farm. She meant to say Australorps, but her phone knows better than her. and Jersey Giants. I had no idea they were conservation birds. I'm combing Cotswold wool, loving this chat. Actually, I love all the chats. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. That's so sweet.
Yes. The Australorps are on the recovery list now, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Hopefully we'll get them off the list one day.
I know it. I heard that. That's the whole goal.
Absolutely. Joyce also says eggshells are great for enriching soil, and I have seen an article that uses half shells for growing seeds, and then you transfer the shell and sprout to the garden.
Yes,
oh, that's great.
I've seen that.
I should try that. I'm terrible with plants, but I'm good with animals. And then Marilyn says, being new to NC, is there a farm program like the one Cynthia took in Tennessee here? I had a hobby farm for years in New York.
Yeah, there's a sustainable ag program at Central Carolina Community College is one that is really popular for people just beginning to get into hobby farms. And the college here in Pittsburgh has a really nice vegetable farm. I'm not sure if they keep chickens anymore because the person that managed the chickens left. And but they do cover livestock and poultry because usually we go over there to teach that part of the curriculum with rare breed talks. But yeah, CCCC is a good place to go. And can they take that class from in Tennessee remotely?
Yes, because I think at this time, because of the virus, everything, last year we did it all virtual. And this year, I think they're going to do it virtual, a hybrid, where they have virtual and a combo. So they could do it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the poultry class that they're asking me to do an offshoot, we're doing it all virtual. We decided that yesterday, and we were a couple days when we were talking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get links from you and share with people.
Yeah, I think folks would like that. Yeah. But it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, Cynthia. Do you have any final wisdom to share with people if they're thinking of dumping their city life and getting into farming? Any last words of wisdom?
I would say that they say don't quit your day job, and that's probably some truth in that, unless you have a partner or your spouse or whatever, because farming can be something, especially if you do true farming, it can be something that doesn't always have you solvent, and so you've got to pay attention to your monies. I think we love what we do, and the money and putting that is usually later and last, and you probably should look at it a little bit first and get some ideas of what that means. If you're going to do it as a hobby, then that's great. But if you start moving into leaving, like I went from the hobby to the full blown, then you need to probably look at that. To me, because otherwise you don't want to hate what you love, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. You want to love it, and you won't if you are, drowning more or less. And I would also say look in your community and see where the food sources are and where you can tap in. Do you have some food deserts around? People that really would need the expertise that you're about to bring with your food, you're supplying, and helping them out.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Great advice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate having you as a member. That's so enthusiastic. And for anybody out there that would like to follow suit, we'd love to have you as a member of the Livestock Conservancy. And You know, Cynthia is right. Chickens are the gateway, so be careful. You could wind up like Brittany, who now has chickens, ducks, and now geese. And I'm scared to death to take her to any more poultry shows. She might come back with a turkey.
I know. I get it. I've got quail now, so don't tell anybody.
Uh-oh.
I know. I'm going to follow up with you, Cynthia, about some Swedish ducks because I love them. Well, as we are winding up with our shameless plugs, you can go to Cynthia's website, that heniscityfarm.org. So please check her out. And then I think you're also on Facebook at Heniscity Farm. Is there anything else you'd like to plug, Cynthia?
Let's see. I'm trying to think what we would do. There is an article about me on an Urbanite. It's they did this gorgeous article. And it's just Urbanite. It's URBAANITE. And they were here with the chef, and the chef actually took some of what she learned from me and created a recipe with the birds and the eggs. It was gorgeous. I think people would like to see that part, what she did with what you can do with birds and eggs.
And I read that article. It said you can also buy some of your products through Barn to Door.
Barn to Door, yes, yes. I have a website. I guess an online store on Barn to Door.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I found that article. It's urbanite.com, Our Community, a Day at Heniscity Farms. So check that out.
That's
amazing what Google can do.
I know, like, Google is something else. What are we going to do with her? That little thing, she's just out there all the time.
And if you wanted to become a member, you can go to our website. That's livestockconservancy.org. We appreciate all of our members and supporters making educational programming possible. So chats like this and other educational programming that we do, and supporting all of our wonderful breeders and stewards like Cynthia, who's awesome. And I was going to say something else. Oh, I was going to thank ManaPro, our amazing sponsor for Chicken Chats. And before we go, I'm going to play their 1 minute video talking about how awesome their products are. And you might see a familiar face. Cynthia's featured. Is there anything else before we go, ladies?
No, we just have to get together after this is over.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Brittany and I will both be in Nashville and we could swing by. And because we'd love to do that. And don't forget the week after next, we're going to have our next chicken chat, and it's going to be all about schmaltz.
Oh,
that's right.
Yes.
Stick around, and then tomorrow we're doing Woolly Wednesday with Roy Clemmis of Clemmis and Clemmis to talk about carding and flicking. So if you are into sheep and doing all of those cool crafts, please check it out. That'll be with Sandra. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. It was so awesome chatting with everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Champions, colleagues,
roommates,
and personal trainers.
Whatever role they play,
they're an important part of our lives.
In their quiet way,
and their not so quiet way.
They keep us young.
On our feet,
on the go.
They pull us back to nature
and push us toward the next adventure.
And as much as we count on them,
they count on us all the more.
To nurture their lives
with the same commitment.
To protecting them,
helping them grow
and thrive.
Treating them
as well as they treat us.
By giving them a little more of our lives.
Because no matter what role they play,
out here
or in here,
we're here to make their lives the best they can be.
ManaPro, nurturing life.